Chapter 11. Dusk was breaking. The fire's flames licked the sky, impatient for the height of the encroaching night. Around the fire were 3 werewolves and Joe. Behind them, sitting on a boulder, was Ariel. Obsidian and Soin, possibly the strangest set of companions ever assembled, had gone to the beach to stargaze.
"It's a good fire,"
Hunter said. Joe nodded.
"So, who are your friends?"
"They are members of my tribe's government, such as it is. We, being werewolves, need laws. Otherwise, we would probably kill each other until there was one werewolf standing. Our government makes the rules for our populations to coexist in relative harmony. That is its only purpose. The 3 of us constitute our government, again, such as it is."
"And you're the president of your tribe?"
"No, he is."
Hunter pointed to the werewolf to his right, who immediately bowed.
"I will be making introductions when Alter arrives. It would be good to know your names."
Joe said. The president of the werewolves leaned forward.
"I am called the One Who Leads, but most of my tribe shortens it to One Who. You may call me that."
There was the tiniest snarl underneath his words, barely noticeable, but Joe heard it and took note.
"And you? What is your name and position if you want Alter to know?"
"I am One Who's assistant. My name is Whisperer."
"Interesting name," Joe observed. "How do you come upon your names? You weren't born with them, were you?"
Hunter shrugged. He glanced at One Who and then answered.
"Strangely enough, we are born with these names. They direct our life path. The names are the most sought-after words in our entire society. The One Who, for example, is a title or name that is earned by the parents and grandparents. We only go back 2 generations, but the deeds of those generations earn the name."
"There's no voting? I mean, what if... No offense to you,
He turned to One Who.
but what if the child ended up being unworthy of the name?"
"It has happened, but with rarity."
Hunter replied.
"It's only the names of our leaders that are earned by our lineage. Everyone else is granted the freedom to call their children any name they wish, as long as it isn't one of the revered names, those of our leaders. Those names are always earned by family lineage."
Oriel, as if reminding the group that she was present, cleared her throat.
Well, I must say that I have made a serious revision to my reality framework of what a werewolf is. You are much more intelligent than I believed. I'm being forced to make adjustments with every word you say. This bodes well for our negotiations.
One Who nodded.
You are generous to make those acknowledgments. We appreciate them. However, you should know that we can control ourselves for only so long, and only for self-serving interests. If time or our interests are against us, I'm embarrassed to admit it, savages in every way.
Joe flashed a nervous smile, and in the darkness behind him, he heard a twig break. He turned to see Alter walking toward them, slow and deliberate. He immediately stood up.
"Right on time,"
Joe said.
"Here, you can be next to me."
Joe pointed to a place to his left, but Alter walked to his right and sat down without saying a word, and then looked up to Joe expectantly.
This is Alter. She represents the sea dragons in these negotiations in the same way as Oriel, and I represent the werewolves. However, tonight, given that the leadership of the werewolves is here, present, we will allow them to speak directly with Alter. Our role will simply be to guide the conversation. Nothing more."
He paused, and as if he suddenly realized he was still standing, he sat down.
Across the fire is One Who. He is the leader of his tribe. Next is Hunter. He was our first contact with the werewolves. Next to him is Whisperer, acting in the role of assistant to One Who.
Joe paused again.
And of course, all of you already know Ariel and myself.
There was a general nodding of heads and an occasional mumble of agreement.
"Now, to get this started,"
Joe continued,
"we will define the open issue, which, at the surface, seems quite easy to solve. This issue is that once territories are agreed upon, Neither of you can transgress the other's territory. It is a mutual respect in the eyes of the werewolves. In the case of the sea dragons, they feel that there are only two in number, that they are not hunters, and that the only reason they venture into werewolf territory is to find certain herbs or plants that are not native to their own territory. One who? What do you think of this issue?
Joe asked. One who shifted his position on the ground, seeking more comfort. With werewolves, it was hard to judge their age, except for their movement. The physical size, the fur color, and the wrinkles on the face did not really change with age. Those who were old when they moved, you could see that they were old. Their movement lacked the fluidity of the young. It was the telltale sign of age. One whose single shift of position telegraphed his age to Alter, who took note of everything around her.
I am a simple werewolf. I judge on the merit of observation. What I have observed of the sea dragons is that they have come into our world. They have sought our territory and taken it over without any agreement or request. They have defiled our natural land by making structures upon it without our agreement, or even so much as asking permission. They simply took it. Now, in my simple mind, I see that as entitlement. Entitlement toward a native species is racism and bigotry. It cannot be thought of as anything else. And what is most alarming is that racism is the headwaters of genocide. Thus, the very beginning of our relationship with the sea dragons is mired in this reality. The sea dragons seized our land and built on that land, and now are negotiating to own that land with the right to go anywhere they please while they insist that the werewolf must stay in our sanctioned territory. Well,
One who let out a muffled chuckle.
I'm not one to judge harshly, but in this case we have two racist, entitled sea dragons, new to our world, insisting that they should be free upon our land, and yet not grant us the same privilege.
He stared into Alter's eyes.
Can you explain how my words are wrong?
Alter sat quietly for a moment or two. Her eyes seemed fixated on the flames of the fire.
You speak justly. Your words are not wrong. You feel you have been taken advantage of. However, do you admit that there have been missing sea dragons, probably killed by members of your tribe?
Hunter leaned forward, baring his lengthy teeth, which glinted with the yellow light of the flames.
We mistook these sea dragons as enemies, as anyone would who came upon a strange species with their size and apparent strength.
I see.
Alter sighed.
Have the sea dragons hurt any of you or your tribe?
No.
One who answered resolutely.
However, we know that if the sea dragons can live on land, it will be just a matter of time before they are able to fly. If they can fly, they can breathe fire. If they breathe fire, they can rule this planet. You see, werewolves do not evolve physically. We evolve here,
He said, pointing to his head. One who continued.
Your kind and that of sea dragons, you evolve physically and you do so quickly. This is a source of concern on our part because while two sea dragons do not pose a threat to us in any way, we know in time there will not remain two sea dragons. And we, as a tribe and species, live in 3 generations of time. 3 generations in our world is the equivalent of 300 years. Can you tell me with certainty that the sea dragons in 300 years will not be numbered in the hundreds or thousands, that they will not have wings and fly among the clouds, bringing their fire down upon us werewolves in order to secure more land for themselves?
Alter nodded.
I understand your concern, but the vagaries of evolution cannot be brought to these negotiations.
And why not?
Hunter demanded.
Because no one controls evolution's path or timeline. I cannot deny the possibility of what you fear any more than you can deny the possibility that in 300 years the sea dragons will continue to be 2 in number, and they will not be able to fly or breathe fire. These are useless forays into the future. Let us keep our attention on the world in which we live, and in that world, the sea dragons are 2 in number. They desire a very tiny, even minuscule slice of the land, which incidentally is not owned by the werewolves. It is simply a resource of the planet. If it is owned by anyone, it is the planet itself, otherwise known as nature.
We agree with you.
One who said.
That no one can foresee the future with any precision, but it is my duty to think in 300-year spreads, and it would not be prudent for me to dismiss possibilities of the kind I have shared. You cannot dispute that it is a possibility, and therefore it could happen. And it is on that basis that we must operate, or else, in 300 years, my legacy and those of my forebears will be known as the one who was blind.
Alter turned to Ariel.
What do you think so far? Are we making progress?
Yes, I think so. You are both listening. It seems that the impasse is contained in some future state neither of you see the same way. Perhaps, if the future were calibrated in, well, let's say, chunks of time that gave us an opportunity to reevaluate the agreement, we could move forward. Not worrying about the distant future, yet knowing that our agreement is only for a chunk of time, and it can be revoked if there is evidence that either party to the agreement is not honoring it.
Revoked?
Hunter said.
What does that mean?
Whatever the current agreement is, the terms of that agreement become null and void for whichever side dishonors the agreement. But as I said before, there must be evidence.
And null and void, does that mean that the sea dragons would have to return to the sea if they began to multiply in number?
One who asked.
To cite one example.
Yes, that is what revoked means. However, it could also mean that the agreement is renegotiated in favor of the werewolves, using your example.
Evidence can be fabricated.
Alter said.
It is not always clear.
Is anything perfect when there are two sides and each has an agenda different from the other?
Joe asked, looking around at each of them like a lighthouse.
I am not averse to setting chunks of time to review the status of the agreement.
Alter reported.
I think that is a good suggestion. However, I think there needs to be an independent board to review any evidence that may impart fundamental changes to the agreement.
And who would be on an independent review board?
Hunter asked.
That would have to be part of the agreement.
Joe said.
It could be us. I mean, us in terms of we are neither sea dragons nor werewolves. Hence, we're independent.
But you represent different sides. Are you truly independent?
Is there anything or anyone else who is truly independent that has good judgment?
Joe asked, turning to the three werewolves.
There is,
one who said.
However, they are difficult to find on this planet.
And what are they if you don't know where they are?
Joe asked.
They are ancient beings that our legends speak of as our creators, not just werewolves, but all things on this planet.
Have you ever seen one?
One who slowly shook his head and sighed.
I met one once.
And?
It was very powerful. I had nothing to say or do in its presence. My body could only vibrate, as if it was grasping for something it could not see or understand.
Can you summon them?
Alter asked.
I have tried, but not successfully.
So they can't be an independent board. You need members who can be summoned.
And what of you?
Hunter challenged.
All of you just dropped into our world without invitation. You are more like the sea dragons than you might believe. How can we trust that you are independent?
We are trying to help you.
We don't need anything except for our world to return to what it was before the sea dragons dragged themselves out of the sea onto our shores and decided to make our land their home.
Hunter half shouted. The corners of his lips were quivering uncontrollably. Alter stood up.
Is there anything the sea dragons, short of leaving, could do to make you accept them in your world?
A sacrifice would do,
Hunter said.
What kind of sacrifice?
Joe asked, alarmed by Hunter's statement, hoping he misunderstood.
Once a week, the sea dragons bring us one of their own to do with as we like.
Alter smirked.
You show your barbarism with that desire, and yet you want an agreement that protects you from beings that seek no harm to anyone or anything. I can bring your suggestion to my clients, but it will cause harm to the negotiations, probably irreparable harm. Is that what you want?
She paused, her steely-eyed face directed at One Who.
My associates have been preoccupied, and
One Who began.
Hunter here has not been hunting. We are in our 6th day of fasting. We are very hungry, and when we get hungry, we say, and sometimes do, stupid things.
He turned to Hunter.
Apologize to Alter.
Hunter took a deep breath and sighed, his shoulders sunk low.
My apologies. Between the night and the hunger and all of the stress of finding an equitable solution to our dilemma, not to mention having been riding the tail of a dragon who was trying its best to shake me off in mid-air, I admit I spoke unwisely. Again, my apologies.
Hunter bowed almost imperceptibly.
You have a dragon of the air?
Alter said, sitting down, her interest in the conversation renewed. Hunter looked surprised for a moment.
You didn't know?
Alter shook her head.
Can I meet this dragon?
For what purpose?
One who asked.
Curiosity, I suppose. I've never met a dragon before.
Alter paused, deep in thought.
What if we proposed this dragon to be the independent review board? The sea dragons would trust it because they revere dragons of the air. You would trust it because I can see in your eyes that dragons hold great reverence as well. They're probably the only animal we all fear. What do you think?
The dragon has a name,
Oriel said.
Obsidian. He came into this world when we did. None of us know whether we'll be here for another instant or our entire life.
If the sea dragons,
Joe said slowly.
if they see Obsidian as a reliable, independent judge, then why not propose it, assuming he's willing? As we agreed earlier, we can't let the future stand in our way.
Where is he now?
Alter asked.
He's beachside with Soin,
Joe said.
And who is Soin?
Alter asked.
the opposite of Obsidian.
Joe chuckled.
Do you want to meet him now?
I do.
Joe stood up, as all of them did, with the exception, of course, of Oriel. She was already in the air.
Follow us,
Joe said.
It's only a short walk.
The three werewolves grouped together for a moment. One who put his hand on Hunter's shoulder.
You should gather a hunting team. We know where the deer are if our scouts are to be trusted. You concentrate on that. Whisperer and I will stay close to Alter. She may yet prove to be valuable.
Hunter nodded his understanding and disappeared into the thick woods. The other two werewolves followed the others to the white sand beaches that bathed beneath the silver starlight and the darkened blue-violet sky.
Do you trust her?
Whisperer whispered to one who,
Creatures like her can never be fully trusted because they are intelligent in ways we cannot understand, but they can still make mistakes. And that's what makes it interesting.
The mistakes?
No, what happens after the mistakes?
one who smiled, plodding behind Joe and Alter.